It was a sunny June morning in a suburb of New York. The campus was waking up quietly, students were completing their preparations as the dew on the grass evaporated. Today was the day when not only diplomas but also life were symbolically handed over. Graduation. Some students were taking pictures, some were hugging their families, and some were walking through the campus they had worked so hard for years for the last time. Everyone felt that an era was ending, but no one thought that it would be limited to graduation. The open-air amphitheater where the ceremony would take place was decorated with red and white decorations, and the school's symbols were rotating on giant screens. The stage was ready. The protocol list was clear. The speakers, the rector, the student valedictorian, everything was as planned. Until those black SUVs entered the campus. The first person to see was a security guard. He dropped his radio on the ground, his eyes widened. It was impossible not to recognize the man who got out of the vehicle. That famous silhouette with graying hair was walking with a self-confidence that had become a habit for years on his face. His eyes were focused on the stage. Donald J. Trump was walking to his university graduation ceremony without any invitation, without any protocol. At that moment, time stopped. Students turned their heads, parents grabbed their cell phones. Some asked in surprise, "Is this a joke?" Some excitedly asked, "Where's the camera?" But this was not a script. Trump was really there, without any warning, explanation, or announcement. The rector was shouting to his assistants backstage. "Who called this guy? Who did he get permission from?" But neither the power of protocol nor the security chains could stop that step walking towards the stage. When Trump reached the center of the stage, he took the microphone in his hand. He didn't even test his voice, because this was something he had done hundreds of times. He was testing his attention, not his voice. Most of the audience held their breath. He was silent for only a few seconds. Then someone in the crowd shouted, "He doesn't belong here!" The tension rose at that moment, but not a single muscle moved on Trump's face. "My young friends," he said, his voice clear and solid, "maybe it wasn't planned for me to be here today, but life never goes as planned." The crowd responded with a roar. Some applauded, some intended to protest, but everyone's eyes were on him. Some academics were trying to get on TV behind the scenes saying, "Is there a live broadcast? Let's intervene without getting into the press." But it was too late. Video clips had already started to appear on social media. Did Trump crash the graduation ceremony? Trump on campus, planned, or provocation? At that moment, Trump raised his hands in the air as if he were wishing everyone would be quiet, and the moment really happened. The hundreds of students and families in front of the stage went silent. Trump's eyes searched for someone in the crowd, and he found them. A young woman, the valedictorian, Isabella Ray. Her valedictorian medal was on her chest, a trembling diploma in her hands, a look of terror mixed with curiosity in her eyes. Trump looked directly at her. "You," he said, "I want to talk to you." "How dare you?" someone in the crowd shouted. But Trump didn't seem to hear that voice. There are moments in life, Isabella. No diploma, no award, no title can replace that moment. This moment could be one of them. Isabella hesitated to get up. The rector was warning her with his gaze, "Sit down." But then he smoothed her hair with his hands and started walking towards the stage. He stood in front of Trump. He handed her the microphone. "Can you introduce yourself?" Isabella held the microphone, her voice trembling but her words clear. "I'm Isabella Ray. I am the valedictorian. I graduated from this school with honors, and I don't know what I'm facing here today." Trump smiled. "That's the right answer," he said. "Because life is just like that. You graduate. You think things will end, but that's when the real story begins, and that story never goes the way you wrote it." This statement hit everyone, not just Isabella, because everyone there was thinking about what would happen after graduation for the first time in their lives. And Trump was speaking right into the middle of this uncertainty, in his own style, in his own words, but strangely sincere. Some in the crowd were still nervous, some were whispering, "Is this a political move?" But no one could take their eyes off him, because at that moment everyone realized that this speech was not a show, it was real. And Trump was directing this reality, not like on TV, not like on Twitter, in a one-on-one live organic moment. At that moment, someone in the audience was recording on his phone and live streaming on his YouTube channel. Guys, I can't describe the moment we're living right now. Trump is here. He's really here. He's giving a commencement speech. This video will go viral. And yes, it would, because this wasn't just a speech. This was a scene that would turn media, politics, and all prejudices upside down. Trump did something at that moment. He paused, turned to the crowd, and said, "If you like life to surprise you, subscribe to this channel, because I'm here not just to talk, but to tell stories. Here I come." The crowd smiled. It was like a familiar media call, but it broke the tension a little. Then Trump got serious again. "I'm not going to give you a political speech here," he said. "But I will show you something. This world is in your hands now. And those hands should not only hold pens, they should also hold character. You should have knowledge, but you should also have an upright posture." A lecturer was writing these words of Trump on his notebook. He adjusted his glasses and whispered, "This man is stealing the stage again." But Trump had not stolen the stage. He had taken it back, because a stage belongs to those who deserve it most. And at that moment, everyone understood. This speech was just beginning. Trump's words had spread across the campus, spilling from the open-air lecture hall and echoing on social media. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, they were all ablaze. The hashtag #Trump graduation crash was trending within minutes, but in the lecture hall, the real world was still quiet. Because there was a truth on the stage, live, direct, unfiltered. Trump had gone beyond traditional graduation speeches, offering a sincere challenge to the students. But challenges are not good for everyone. At first, a few students stood up, their backs to the stage. Not silently, not disrespectfully, but with a clear message. This was a protest, and then others followed. One group rose from their seats, their eyes clear in determination, even without signs. Some looked at Trump as he walked past the stage, others turned their heads and walked away. Isabella watched them from the corner of her eye. A deep conflict suddenly filled her. Was being a leader just a matter of getting applause, or was it also about facing the echoes that hit the walls? Trump watched the crowd silently. He expected a reaction, even encouraged it, because he knew that a real speech doesn't just get applause. It also makes people uncomfortable. It makes them think. It hurts. Some of the crowd was still listening to him attentively. Some were watching live on their cell phones. Others just kept quiet and waited, because this wasn't just a speech anymore, it was a turning point. "Look," Trump said, his voice calm but full as he turned to the crowd of students. "No revolution in history has ever started with a speech that everyone applauded. Real change first creates unrest, because the mind is first shaken, then it takes shape." At that moment, the rector was angrily shouting at an officer in the background, "How did this happen? Who gave permission? The press is here, the sponsors are here." But Trump didn't hear them. He was just telling. He seemed to have forgotten about the cameras and was speaking as if there were only a few young people in front of him. That's why he was so effective. Then he turned back to Isabella. "We started talking to you. Now I want to ask you a question," he said. "You've been on this campus for years, you've achieved success, but were you really taught anything about life, or did they just measure success?" Isabella paused. Her heart was pounding. She was in the middle of a debate with one of America's most talked about figures, in front of hundreds of people on her own graduation day. But something was also rising inside her, that familiar feeling, the desire to speak. "We've learned a lot about life, of course," the young woman said, "but not in your own terms. We've learned solidarity, acceptance of differences, confrontation with the past." Trump nodded. "That's all well and good, but how many of you have faced your own disappointments? How many of you have spent a night alone, basking in the joy of success that no one applauded, that no one saw?" These questions created a deep silence in the crowd, because everyone was confronting something deep down. Trump wasn't talking about his usual policies. He wasn't talking about walls, taxes, or elections. He was just talking about life at that moment. That's why he was effective. But the protests were not over. A young man shouted from stage left, "This is not a place for politics." The crowd applauded. The other students supported him. Trump turned that way. "You're right," he said, "but life itself is politics. Every choice, every decision, every belief has an echo. The real world won't be so kind after you graduate." As Trump finished his words, a TV channel switched to live broadcast in the background. The presenter excitedly explained, "Former President Donald Trump has attended a college graduation without telling anyone. He is currently giving a speech on stage and is getting mixed reactions from students." By the time the live broadcast started, the incident had already become a political debate in the outside world. Some were calling it a provocation, others were calling it a historical moment. Outside the lecture hall, a father who was late for the graduation witnessed the moment while searching for his son. He recorded it on his cell phone. "I have never seen anything like it. This is not a graduation. This is a turning point." At that moment, Trump turned back to the microphone. "Look," he said, "I didn't come here to ask for votes. I don't have a campaign. Some of you may not even want to see me here, but know this. Graduation is not just an ending. It's also a reckoning, and you are the generation that will carry the fate of this country." The crowd applauded. Some were still resisting, while others were impressed. But everyone knew this now. This event would not be forgotten. Trump looked around the crowd. "If these words resonate with you, subscribe to the channel right now," he said with a laugh, "because there will be more of these speeches, because this country needs you." At that moment, a television reporter asked permission to approach the stage. "Mr. Trump, what is the reason for this surprise appearance?" he asked. Trump replied, "The reason is very simple. No one faces the truth anymore, but young people deserve it. That's why I'm here." Here is the answer, changed the tone of the event, because this was no longer a political show, but a social confrontation. Then another student asked to speak. He took the microphone and introduced himself. "I'm Jamal," he said. "I'm a first-generation college graduate. I don't support you. But some of what you said today touched me, because no one really taught us how to fail. They always said succeed, but no one told us how to fall, get back up, try again." Trump approached Jamal and extended his hand. "That's why I needed to be here," he said, "because your generation needs to hear reality, not just a diploma." In the background, the president made a decision. He walked up to the stage. He turned to Trump. "Mr. Trump," he said formally, "it's unusual to see you on stage, but some of what you said today had a profound impact on our students. That's why we're letting you speak. But it's your responsibility to make sure that it becomes a part of this ceremony." Trump nodded. "I have no qualms about taking responsibility," and the stage went silent again. This time, the crowd waited for what he would say. Not just the protesters, not just the supporters, everyone. Because this was no longer just one man taking the stage, but a country facing its young people. Trump took the microphone again and said, "This country will be reshaped in your hands, but first you will shape your own character. So I ask you, will your graduation be just a ceremony or will it be a beginning?" Trump's question, "Is this just a ceremony or is it going to be a beginning?" froze above the lecture hall. No microphone had ever recorded such clear silence. The students bowed their heads, some closed their eyes, some said yes inwardly, while others still resisted. But there was a truth that belonged to no one. That moment was creating its own echo. The president stepped aside. The stage now belonged entirely to Trump. But Trump did not speak for a while. His eyes wandered through the crowd. A child rose from his mother's lap at the edge of the stage, dropping one of his graduation caps to the ground. That child might not remember this day in 10 years, but millions of others would. Trump took a deep breath, his eyes narrowed, and he began speaking again. "You know," he said, "I've always been asked when I failed. After the presidency, in the corporate lawsuits, in the media lynchings, but the real failure is when you can't hear your own voice. Here today, everyone has a voice. I realize that." The crowd was attentive. You protested me. Some of you turned away, some of you listened, some of you remained silent. But each one is a voice, each one an echo. And that's what graduation is, shouting your own voice for the first time. Trump took a step back at this point. He clasped his hands behind his back. His speech had begun to take on a more personal tone. I don't come to you promising you a perfect life, because perfection is a false poster. I'm telling you about the real life, not being motivated in the morning, being embarrassed when you make mistakes, losing, starting over. That's where real success lies. Now I'm going to tell you one last thing. I've never said this at a press conference or in any of my speeches. All eyes were on the stage now. No camera was close enough to that statement. I was alone my first night in the White House. There was a silence among all those people. I can't explain it. The curtains were closed. The Oval Office was empty. I walked in. I put my hand on the table, and I said, "This place is not yours. Even this seat is not yours. You are just representing for a while." That night I understood. Power is not permanent, but character, it remains. After these words, some graduates in the crowd started to applaud standing up. Some joined them. There were tears in the applause. Some prayed with their hands together, and some stood silently. Because this speech was no longer a speech by a leader, but a confession by a person. But suddenly the atmosphere changed. A reporter shouted loudly from the corner of the stage, "Mr. Trump, is this a campaign launch? Have you come to impress the young people?" Trump turned. He laughed briefly. "No," he said. "This is not a campaign. This is an awakening. You are not used to this, because what you are used to is fiction. I am presenting you with the truth, and sometimes the truth can be a nightmare, but that nightmare can also wake up in the morning." Another student stood up. He was a young man with red hair, glasses, and an excited voice. "Mr. Trump," he said, "I do not support you, but some of the things you said here today made me think, especially the character issue. Because we are very visible on social media, but sometimes we are empty inside. It is like we are following ourselves. And you reminded us that we need to look inside ourselves." Trump nodded. That is what true leadership is, being able to understand what someone else is saying while defending your own point of view. At that moment, the president took the stage again. The official part of the ceremony had to begin. The diplomas had to be handed out. But no one wanted to get up, because everyone was saying to themselves, "This ceremony has already started." Trump took the microphone one last time. This time his voice was lower but deeper. "I came here today without permission. I had no invitation. But there are some truths that do not wait for an invitation. They come. And when they come, you either ignore them or you confront them." At that moment, Isabella, who had been waiting silently behind the stage, stepped forward again. She had her diploma in her hand and a confused but determined expression on her face. She approached Trump. "You know, Mr. Trump," she said, "you taught us perhaps the lesson we will learn the most today. But the real lesson is this. This stage was ours, and we are not giving up that stage anymore." Trump smiled. "That stage is yours now, but how you use it is up to you." Then he turned around. Security guards tried to surround him in a hurry, but Trump slowly walked off the stage. The crowd split in two. Those applauding, those thinking silently, those protesting. They were all there. They were all part of this moment. Because this wasn't just Trump's graduation speech. This was a society confronting its youth. As he got into the car, reporters bombarded him with questions. Before closing the door, Trump turned and said, "Life doesn't give you a diploma, it gives you a square. The square was there today, and I asked only one thing: are you ready?" As the vehicle pulled away, the crowd that remained in the amphitheater quietly returned to their seats. But nothing would be the same, because now they had graduated, not just from school, but from their own silence.